Hello and good evening, everyone who is joining us today, myself and Chai Ping, for the LinkedIn Live session of the second session of the Curious Mind series. Firstly, extremely sorry for joining, both of us joining a little late. We had some technical glitches, and as Chai Ping said, the Murphy's Law worked with us as much as we practiced that it will work. At the last minute, there is always has to be a technical glitch. But the good part is, it's Friday the 13th and we are starting off and we are online and we would love to spend the next 1 hour with you. So today we have none other than Chai Ping Chua as our auspicious guest, and I'm extremely delighted and grateful for her willing to be a part of this small Curious Mind series at this point in time. Chai Ping, would you like to start by saying a quick hello to everyone and how are you feeling today?
Thanks, Vikram. Thanks for having me. Lovely to be on your show. For the years I've known you, I never knew you were a DJ and talk show host and all that. So very delighted. And Friday 13, obviously, it's as auspicious as it can be. And good evening or good morning, good afternoon, everyone. If you are joining in from other time zones, I hope you either have a cup of water, and I think my cup of water says keep calm and eat cupcakes, or a cup of coffee, right? Oops, I don't know where my camera is, right? But anyway, yeah. So I hope, and or even whether it's a beverage, water, or alcoholics, yeah, all welcome. Thanks, Vikram.
Well, it's at home, so you can drink whatever is in your cup, like you rightly said, Chai Ping. And it's a casual chat between two of us, between Chai Ping and myself. I am drinking tea. For me, it's an evening time tea, and it's a Virgo cup. I'm a Virgo, so I enjoy my Virgo cup, and we'll start from there. So, for the audience who are joining in, the next 45 to 50 minutes, we are definitely going to ask some very tricky questions but relevant questions to Chai Ping and have her insights based on her experience and knowledge, which will help us learn some aspects about leadership in our day-to-day life. So this Curious Mind series is just to put those curious questions to industry stalwarts, to somebody like Chai Ping, who would kind of, based on their rich experience, expertise, share with us on various leadership aspects. I mean, we read a lot of books, but there is nothing like understanding from the real leaders what is happening on the ground and learning from them. So before we kick off this session, and I'm going to kind of go ahead with a barrage of questions to Chai Ping, let me start with a little bit of a brief summary of Chai Ping's rich experience. She's been possessing more than uh, 2 decades of experience in HR. Chai Ping has been associated with prestigious organizations like Delloitte, Accenture, had a long stint with Delloitte, Accenture, Mondelez, and currently she is with Experian as the country director as well as the countryside leader. She has played numerous. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can visit her page on LinkedIn, and she's played some very numerous, interesting, and challenging roles across all these organizations. She's been instrumental in driving some very successful initiatives. The main thing to highlight is in all of this and in this tenure of more than 2 decades is her leadership style, which has been mentoring, coaching, nurturing, and guiding so many HR professionals into enhancing their careers even further. So, and that's why when Chai Ping and myself decided that we will have this candid chat, the best aspect we said is, why don't we learn leadership aspects from Chai Ping in today's world more than anything else? So that's where we are going to go. Chai Ping, are you ready?
I'm in your good hands, Vikram.
Okay, fantastic. That's really nice. So let's crack on. I will try to speak less so that Chai Ping speaks much more, because that's what the audience wants to hear. They want to hear your insights, and that's where we'll go from. So just to start off, and the theme around today's Curious Mind series is around leaderships, and we learn in our daily aspects of our lives. So for someone who thrives in leading from the front and in building relationships, How has the pandemic impacted your leadership style? Has it evolved in a virtual world over the last 18 months? It's now going to be 2 years almost. Or what have been your key learnings? So, for somebody like you, I know, who kind of thrives on one-to-one, face-to-face relationships and all that, how has the pandemic impacted your leadership style over the last 18 months or so? What have been your learnings?
Thanks, Vikram. I think we have all been in isolation, if I'm in lockdown and whatnot, right? And if I think about my own leadership and what I think is now more important than ever is empathy, right? I think we talked about it before the pandemic, before the isolation, before the lockdown, right? We talked a lot about empathy, but I think the true test of empathy what was during the pandemic, right? People talk about empathy, probably in the loose sense of the word, but with the crisis, I really then realized, right, how important empathy is, like, in a very virtual world, right? I haven't seen my colleagues for, I don't know, I mean, the majority of my colleagues in the office, I haven't seen them for maybe over a year. I haven't seen my new colleagues from whenever they started, and they've onboarded so many people despite the pandemic. My own team, right? I haven't seen them for, I don't know, maybe 6 months now. I'm kind of recounting when was the last time I saw them, and
Yes.
and it's just this. If I don't even know what to call the pandemic anymore. Like, it's so long drawn, it's so protracted. You almost don't know. You just don't know, right? And if we talk about the VUCA world, this is truly living the VUCA world. And therefore, if I think about leadership, and if I think about the word empathy, we just can't take it lightly anymore, because people talk about how good we are in the virtual world, or how intelligent virtual intelligence. I really want to start challenging ourselves around virtual empathy. I've talked about it a little bit, in some of my external discussions and whatnot, but virtual empathy, right? And making that connection, despite not having that physical presence, right? And I have had no choice but to make connections, right, with people I've never met in my life, right? And literally it's through, through a device, and I do a little bit of mentoring on the side, as well. And in the past, when I did mentoring, I mean, it was, hey, let's go have coffee, or let's grab lunch, or something. But in a
Yes.
virtual world, I've added new mentors, right? New mentees
Yes.
into my sphere, and and I keep telling myself I can't not do them, I won't do them justice if I don't build that connection virtually. And I've never met some of them, in my entire life,
True.
right? And therefore, I really do think that empathy is ever more important during this crisis. And next week, I'm going to be on some panel, right? And I said this very cheekily as well. Love is a very forgotten word in a steely corporate world. But I think we really need to start reintroducing that notion, right? Or extending that notion of love and compassion. And therefore, an extension of it is empathy to the very corporate, steely workplace, right? So I think if I reflect, I think over the last 18 or 24 months, this is what it is. Yeah, empathy in its purest form.
Purest form. Very true, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Chai Ping. In fact, it was one of the follow-up questions, but you already covered it so well in this itself. Just yesterday we did a virtual farewell, and I remember the time when we used to do farewells for our colleagues, where it used to be okay on a Friday evening or a Thursday evening. There used to be a physical card, and used to kind of come together. There used to be a gift, but now it is Padlet, it is writing online. It is all about virtually connecting and having people feel about. I mean, there were people who were emotional yesterday. There were tears in the eyes, but it was nowhere the same of what it is. So, and I think that's the bonding, that's the connection, and that's why empathy is very, very important. Thank you so much. That's what Sharma, she mentions, empathy in a virtual VUCA world, connecting through diversity, doing justice to our mentees, extending notion of love. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you,
Thanks.
Sharma.
Thanks, Sharma.
That also, just wanted to add, kind of, I didn't cover it in the start for the audience. The best part about this Curious Mind series is Chai Ping doesn't know what are the questions she's going to face. So, so it is all not scripted. She is actually being very candid right on the spot. She has to think through on the spot and answer on the spot itself. So yeah, as Sharma continues to say, it's all Chai Ping's words. It is not scripted. It is not something. So, and for people who are attending this, if you have any questions, please put them across in the comment section. I will try and cover those as well. Obviously, for me, from a Curious Mind series perspective, I have a lot of questions. But if you have something which you think it is very interesting, you would want to capture, this is your moment with Chai Ping, and please ensure you capture that. Okay, let's move on. Now, as you mentioned, in a corporate life, Chai Ping, there has to be empathy, there has to be love. We all know working from home, it has impacted our families, whether it is elderly, whether it is children, and whether it is teenagers, anybody. For somebody like you, who's a corporate woman who's done extremely well over the years, has teenage children, demanding stakeholders at work, a pandemic which you like said, it's no more a pandemic. It does not seem when it is ending, especially in Malaysia. We are in a perpetual lockdown all throughout. So, what, according to you, at the level where you are being a woman, and I'm being very gender specific right now, you would recommend 3 leadership traits that someone to possess who might find themselves in a similar boat or a scenario like you are? 3 leadership traits to have.
Yeah, I as you were asking, I was kind of processing my thoughts, right? Given that it's really candid conversation this year, so I'm really processing my thoughts. If I think about my own situation, my own condition, and with Asian families, right? It's 3-4 generations in a household, right? I don't know about having done well in my career. I'm not so sure about that, Vikram, but thank you very much for the very kind.
You're being modest.
Absolutely. I still question myself every day, have I done the right things? What have I done? Have I left the world today in a better place, right, than it was yesterday? But if I think about some traits, or whether you call it leadership traits or not, I think what comes to mind again is if you apply trust in the workplace, if you apply empathy in the workplace, and if you apply love in the workplace or compassion in the workplace, I think I like to kind of extend that into the family as well, right? And I recall having this conversation with my then 11-year-old late last year. So we were late adopters to Netflix, and for obvious reasons, my older boy is a teenage. I mean now he's a young adult. He's 18. And we were thinking, okay, it was a crucial year. It was his O-levels, SPM, and that's what the Malaysian exams, right, equivalent of O-levels. And I said, no Netflix, and that was last year. And then my younger boy obviously has been on online classes for the longest time. And homeschooling. I never knew what homeschooling was until the pandemic hit us. And I was just reflecting when you were asking that question about this conversation I had with my then 11-year-old, and I said, you know what, Daddy and I are thinking that perhaps we will install Netflix, and because we are in lockdown and the pandemic is still here, and that some really very good programs on Netflix, right, from documentaries to anything. travel, whatever, right? And all sorts of dramas and movies and this and that, right? I mean, honestly, if I had a choice, I'd love to binge watch, right? And movies my brain. So I thought, for selfish reasons, I want Netflix as well. So I sat him down and I said, look, young man, your older brother is sitting for his exams, and you, little one, you need to get more disciplined if you have Netflix, and we're going to obviously give you, access to that account as well. And I said, I want to be able to trust you. Can I trust you? Right? So I guess that notion of trust, has he upheld his side of the bargain? We have Netflix now. We were obviously late, but has he owned up to his side of the bargain? Right? I think to a large extent, yes. As I said, hey, you remember, that chat we had and talked about trust, and I want to be able to trust you with Netflix so that you just don't go on. So, well, his side of the bargain was, I won't go on all the time. Now it's more like, hey, mommy, I'm watching some anime, I'm watching some documentaries. Hey, you know what? I even learned something, about science, about something, and he's telling me, right? So I was thinking, if you apply trust, right, and with trust, trust is a very strange thing in my mind. Whether at home or in the office, right? And people always think you earn trust. Yes, you earn trust, and trust and respect are to be earned. But I also want to challenge ourselves. Trust is something that you first give. Just like love. If you don't give trust, please do not even expect, trust in return. And don't even think about earning trust, right? So, call me naive sometimes. I'm in that mindset where I'm like going, I give trust. I mean, anybody, it could be anyone, a stranger, to me is, I trust, right? Unless you prove, and until proven guilty.
And guilty, trust. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. And if you apply that in the workplace, I think then, suddenly you look at people with different lens, right? And you view, the very, the whole corporate world, right? Productivity, metrics, and KPIs and all that. Suddenly, right, that lens of it will change. So I think trust is important. Empathy, I talked about. And I think a huge dose of compassion would be nice, right? And once you have all these ingredients, to me, these are fundamental ingredients in leadership. Because as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, as a wife, you first have to give, you first have to give trust, and then for any relationship to work, right? Whether it's an employer-employee relationship. So if you're asking for 3 qualities or 3 traits of leadership, I think, these are things that we all have to have. And it has, thankfully, and I'm eternally grateful, it has worked for me. And I hope, many leaders out there or managers out there, I hope that if you apply some of these things, it will work for you as well, right? Because sometimes I think, especially with the crisis now, like, the world is a very cold, hard place, right? Do we need to be sure? We don't. We don't.
No.
We absolutely, And I'll give you one more example, Vikram. When I first had my domestic maid, right, many years ago, people say, oh, you should only buy, a certain ration for her. This box of biscuits is for her, this bunch of vegetables is for her, this can of sardines is for her, this loaf of bread is for her, and that's it, right? And anything else she cannot touch. And I question that, and I do, and up until today, I've never stopped any of my maids, right, from taking whatever they want from the fridge, or anything from the larder. And I've no issue, I've not had any issue with maids stealing my things, because first they will come into my household, it's that trust that I have. And I say that to them, you can eat anything, but if it's finishing, please just tell me so that when I do groceries, when I finish, I know what else is finished. So I think, I think that has worked for me. And they have not stolen food. I've heard of maids where they say, they've stolen biscuits or they've stolen something or so. I have not had that issue. So touch wood, yeah. So I think
That's right.
that notion of trust, yeah, the notion of trust is important. Like give trust, love and compassion. I think those are ingredients for me at least. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting you share that. I mean, I personally, till today, I live with the same principle of trust the person on the face value and see how the person, whether it is at a corporate level or whether it is at a personal level, and see how people respond. At times, I think more often than not, they respond the right way. But then there have also been times when you learn from people that probably not everyone will respond the same way when you kind of you kind of empower them with trust. But what was very interesting I learned from you was that how some of the traits we you kind of embody at home or in the corporate life, and we kind of mix and match them, and now in this virtual world of working at home, which is actually getting literally getting muddled up together, it's blurred, and it is getting, you're using your corporate values at home, you're using your home values at a corporate place, you're still working from home. I think it is very interesting that some of the essence of the values what we are talking about from a leadership perspective still continue to remain the same. And this is not rocket science. This is something which you just have as leaders just have to practice day in and day out and day in and day out, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And treat others how you want to be treated, right? Because you want to be trusted as well. If your bosses or your bosses and your employer trusts you, then you're like, you have a better day at work. I think so. But if you're being micromanaged or someone is always, or if you have to keep watching your back, right? I think that's so unconducive, right? In a workplace, right? And so I'm a big believer of giving trust, right? Like not just earning it, but just give that trust, right? Don't be proven guilty. Yeah. Yeah.
But there would have been times in your career where somebody has proven guilty, isn't it? So then as a leader, how does that impact you? Then do you kind of change your style, or do you say no, I will still continue to stick to the same principles and values, because not everyone is the same, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Vikram, there have been. I mean, in my 20-year career or more now, right? Obviously, right, the majority, of would have, hopefully, right, it applies to the majority, right? There would have been exceptions where you give trust, you give love, if I may, or compassion and chances and opportunities, where they just again don't own up to their side of the bargain, right? And then what happens, right? And you're like going, of course, these are disappointing moments, right? Have they been many? I think, to be honest, I think they're far and few in between. So
Yes.
thankfully for that. But when you look at it, and as a leader, then you kind of think back and reflect and say, but have you done everything right by the person, right? Have you done everything right by the employee or individual, or even some of my stakeholders that I have to manage, right? If you've done everything right by them, then if you have to course correct, if you have to take certain actions, right? Whether even if it's a disciplinary action, then you have to do it, right? Because as a leader, I mean, I don't want to come across as leaders just being this fluffy, all fuzzy and all that, right? Not talking about just trust and love and compassion and all that. Because as leaders, we absolutely need to make very hard decisions.
Hard decisions,
right?
yes.
Because very, 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 very tough and hard decisions. Right? And sometimes it seems very cold to people. Because if not, then they're compromising, whether it's the team or the people around you, or people who truly matter, or even the organization, right? So I must say that despite all the touchy-feely, empathy and love, and all
Good part of it.
I think our moments, right? There are moments, absolutely, really have to be firm, because leaders are not here to be popular, right? And I stand by that, because they're not here to be popular. They're here to do the right things. absolutely.
Absolutely.
So there have been, in my role, right, and my current ones, my previous one, I've had to make very hard decisions, right? Not just for junior levels, but for very senior people as well, right? Very, very difficult decisions. And we had to bite the bullet and kind of nip the problem at its core, because it was going to be, if not, it will be to the detriment of people and enterprise and organizations. So I think that's something that we need to. So it's a balance, right? As much as I talked about trust and compassion.
Very nice, very nice. Thanks for your inputs on that one, Chai Ping. We are pretty much, time just flies when we have these kind of conversations, probably even though in a virtual world. We are pretty much around the half time of the hour here. And obviously, Sharma, who's a good friend of yours, mine, and she's definitely been very responsive. Thank you so much, Sharma. But at the same time, if there are others in the audience, we can't see you, but if you have any comment you want to share, you want to write anything, or you want to ask anything, like I said, this is your moment, just feel free to ask and I'll add that in. Till then, I will definitely continue with my set of curious mind questions. When we spoke last time, Chai Ping, some time back, and you mentioned that you're very passionate about climate change, and as much as whether, irrespective of the profession we are in, whether it is HR or whether it is business or whether it is technology, irrespective of the industry, irrespective of the profession we are in, climate change is impacting us. I mean, I can vouch for it that one thing I personally do or my family does is we do, as much as possible, I can definitely watch 99% of the times we do not use plastic bags. That's one very tiny small thing we do to support what is happening from a climate change perspective and for our future generations. Now, I know when we had spoken some time back, you said this is something very close to your heart. Now, how, as somebody like yourself, as a leader in the capacity where you are, what what are you doing to kind of drive that level of climate change? Can you give us some examples at a personal or at a professional level?
Climate change, global warming, these are, such a huge, and sustainability is a huge topic, right? It impacts us. I mean, I don't want to be sounding biased here, but two things. I just dug up an old article. I was on the front cover. I'm talking about some 20 years ago, and I was a younger, sweeter thing, right? And I was on the cover of one of our newspapers called Malaysia. And at that time, I just come back from Australia, and having had some exposure and all that, you would Australians are such nature lovers and all that, right?
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I don't know, for whatever reason, my boss got that journalist and came in, and then I talked about the environment. Of course, at that time, sustainability was not the word for it. It was an environment and global warming, right? And I think it was ozone layer and all that as well.
Yes.
In those days, I'm thinking about 20 years ago. Now, fast forward 20 years or so now later, and when I had my children, I did think about it quite a lot, and even at that time when I was single and I just come home, and I thought, look, Mother Nature has given it, the bounty of Mother Nature has been so rich, right? And we kind of take advantage of it without giving it back, right? So I've been thinking about it, and then I kind of reduced, literally, I won't call it even, carbon footprint. I mean, at that time, it wasn't even called carbon footprint. I just said, okay, maybe I'll reduce. My mom used to do a bit of open burning, and I'm like going, and I'm talking about 20 plus years ago. I said, can you stop doing open burning? No, but you burn the leaf and the garden refuse and all that. You can turn them into fertilizer. I'm like, Mom, this is, it's adding, to the depletion of the ozone layer and all. And she's like, wait, what are you talking about? Mom, you're educated. What do you do? Because in the 90s, you don't think about these things. But what has happened in the last 50 years, if I look at it, right, that degradation has impacted the world so much, right? I mean, 50 or 60% of our rainforest, that sort of thing. I mean, there's so much research on it now. But I think firstly, I think of myself as a citizen, and a layman, right? I mean, at home, just like you, right? I'm very, trying very hard to reduce the plastic usage. Even if we use plastic, then it has to be, reused, right? A few more times, right? When I go packing food, when we go tapawing and all that, right? As we call it here,
Yes.
I would call the restaurant and say, look, I'm bringing my own boxes, right? So please don't add on to the plastic boxes, or some of them still use the styrofoam. I think it's less now. We used to call the styrofoams white coffee bins, right? So I think as an individual and from a family unit kind of perspective, these are things that I'm trying to do. I do have quite a few plants in my home because I'm mindful about biodiversity as well. I plant different things so that it's just for biodiversity. And I see bees and birds and butterflies and whatnot coming. So I'm really happy actually when I look at it. It's like, hey, the bird is nesting. I have a beehive and all that. So I think on a personal and individual side. On a more corporate level, obviously we've just launched our little green steps as well. As a company where we're encouraging people to kind of plant more, do more, green your space and things like that. I now that the office is shut, it's a bit hard, but when the office was closed, I mean, I would kind of use not air conditioning, the lighting, right? During lunch hour, turn off the lights, and things like that. And we started to try to do a bit of calculation, right, as to carbon footprint. So we start to do that. And then now I'm also more mindful about sending out emails, because when you send out emails, it does heat up the globe, right? So be choiceful about the email that you're going to send. Do you need to send it? I mean, I'm not stopping people from sending emails, but let's be mindful and choiceful about sending out the emails, right? So I think these are little things, and we hardly use paper anymore. I mean, it's hardly use paper. And even for me personally, right, my Time magazine comes in with sleeves, right? It's paper. I think I have it here somewhere. And what I do is for my notes, and these are all made up of paper, and I use that as notes, right? So on a personal term, so in the office we hardly print and all that, right? So it's a bit more mindful and a bit more awareness, right? In terms of some of the steps. I mean, still little steps, but
make a lot of difference.
Yeah, so if I can influence hopefully 1,000 of my employees and some of my friends and all that, just my own network and all that, then maybe, right, the world will become a better place, right? Maybe, yeah.
And
so
I think
little steps.
Perfectly fine. I mean, the very fact that it does not, I mean, we are already at a stage, I would say, that it will more impact our next generations more than it is going to impact us. So it is important that the steps we take today, they are for the better future of our next generations more than us. And I think it's very right. I think some of the steps you're taking are very nice. As in today in Malaysia, there is no dine-in. So whenever I go to pick up food or some takeaway food, and I go for tapao, which we famously call it here, and if I take a box, say, and there are people who really look at you like that, are you really come with a box and you're not going to, so they give you those weird looks.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for us to educate, right, some of the, whether it's the hawkers or the restaurateurs and all that, right? But the other thing that I was thinking a lot about is air conditioning, right? So if I'm working from home now, I air conditioning, I don't turn it on, so I have my windows open, and thankfully I have like my plants around me, right? So just hopefully the air comes in, and I influence my children that way as well, right? So at night, I think some people turn on the air conditioning when they sleep, throughout the night. I said, look, cool down the room for a couple of hours, and that's it. You don't need the air conditioning the whole night through. I mean, the bills are one thing, but really, air conditioning adds so much, heat into the environment. Yeah.
True. Okay, we have a question from somebody I know, Rajshri, and Rajshri for asking that question. So this is from the audience for you, Chai Ping. How does one fix the gap between educational achievements and employable skills in your opinion? I think this is quite bingo directly to you, Chai Ping, based on your experience.
Thanks, Rashmi, for the question. Thank you very much. I spent so many years in Delloitte. I've done so many clean rounds in the UK, here in Australia, right? We've got so many Malaysians abroad, and we do clean rounds and bring them home and all that, right? But interestingly, some and I say this sometimes to urban children, including mine. Right? I said some of the best students that I've seen really are from maybe the more outskirts, not the urban. I'm not saying rural, but maybe from the smaller towns and all that, because somehow their perspectives and that strive, in them, that motivation for them to do better, and they become very strong all-rounder students, right? So just to kind of give you to elaborate a little bit more, right? When I was in Delloitte, there was a first-class student. I think she did accounting, finance, or one of those very technical professional qualification. But I must say, her attitude was quite something. Was really quite something. And after 3 months, her manager told me, and this is first class, right, from one of our top universities here. And then you're like going first class, accounting, finance, a good university, good family background, and what's going on there. But the attitude was really quite shocking. And I said to the manager and then the partner, I said, we can't condone behavior like that. We can't perpetuate a culture where you think you come in with a chip on your shoulder, and you think you are, head and shoulders above the rest. So I didn't confirm her, and I told the manager that I'm not supportive of confirming her. And if you confirm her, you need to put her on a whether you call it we didn't call it a PIP, then on a development kind of
plan.
Path, right? And the manager was like going, thank God you are supportive of me letting her go, and I was going to talk to her about attitude. Now the converse to that, I had a third class employee, third class honors employee, and she came from a reputable university, no doubt, but third class, right? And then from a well-to-do home, right? But her attitude kind of trumped it all. And then I asked her, hey, what went wrong, right? How is it that you did so well in your O levels? You were straight A student, O levels, and then third class, and then she explains, you know what? I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go to LSC. I didn't want to do economics. I didn't want to do I want to do something else. Like my parents asked me to do that from a prestigious university. Yada yada yada. So I said, but her attitude, despite coming from a privileged background, and today she's a very successful C-suite somebody, right? We had her in Delloitte for many years actually, many years, and then after that, she went on to do other things. What I'm saying is, education only gets you that far, right?
Yep.
But I really think that attitude, right? Your strive for excellence, your strive for to give back is one thing, but how are you not just adding value, right? I'm a believer in creating value as well, right? If you have an education, what are you going to do with it, right? Have you made the next person next to you better? Have you made your community better? And how are you doing it? So I think let's not mistake educational excellence with what do you call it? Whether it's give back or productivity or value, right? And I always say, and I say this to my kids when I say, education will just give you that key to the door. When you open the door, what are you going to do with it? So I hope Rajshri, I answered your question. I know it was a Probably a bit of a roundabout way, but yeah, those would be my views.
Thanks, Chai Ping. I'm sure you've answered that question, and I think, I know for sure Rajshri is joining us from the UK, so it's pretty much morning for her as far as UK time.
Good morning.
um, I have in my talent acquisition, when I wear my talent acquisition hat, I must have interviewed thousands of you have interviewed thousands of people, and I think what we look for is when we interact with the person, fine, your profile or your CV will get you will I'm going to just put what Rajshri has mentioned to you. Your profile and your CV will get you to, like Chai Ping said, to the door. But what you kind of do after that is your attitude. I'm personally a firm believer. You hire for the attitude, and you can see the person excel, irrespective of, yes, your education does play some weightage, but not everything. There are some great examples I know of who have not come from the best educated, educational universities or schools, but have done exceedingly well purely on their grit, determination, attitude, and their willingness to learn and enhance themselves over a period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Vikram, if I may, just to add on a little bit more, probably now less so, but say about 10 years, 8 years ago, or and a bit more. I used to get asked, when I recruit and all that, right? I get asked so much about things like, hey, you're not the local grad. I graduated from University of Malaysia or University of Malaysia, and all that, right? Am I good enough? Are you looking for an overseas grad and things like that? Let me tell you one thing, and I said, look, I don't discriminate. Whether you're local or foreign grad and all that, I don't discriminate. And sometimes, I said the only difference is if you have to do a presentation, if you have to be articulate, please just be articulate, just say something, right? Because Malaysians are just, interested and unwitty as charged. They don't say anything, right? And again and again, I've been proven correct, where sometimes, and often, our local grads, right, really, do very well because they feel there's something, they feel that, I'm lacking here, and therefore they work a lot harder, and that grit and determination that we talk about, kind of come shining through, and then they kind of overtake some of our foreign grads, because the foreign grads, I've had an immersion in the UK or an immersion in Australia and so on and so forth, and I can kind of relax a bit like the turtle and rabbit story, right? So our tortoise and rabbit story. Yeah. So I think that's where the difference is, right? But grit, determination, and that strive, to be better, has to be something. And purpose, not forgetting purpose as well. Why do we do what we do?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thanks, Rajshri. Those were some very interesting questions. You kind of got us into a loop. I'm going to ask a question, and there are a couple more. One is coming from Adish, and one is coming from Dennis. But there's one question I would want you to answer, Chai Ping. You can probably take a break for water. I'm conscious you've been speaking non-stop.
No.
If you're okay. Okay.
No problem.
I think now, there has been a lot of talk around, again, specifically over the last 18 months around mental resilience and the usage of employee assistance providers, EAP, what we famously call, within the HR space. However, we know that not a lot of people use these services. Now, as a leader, and not only as an HR leader, I think whether it is employee assistance program or whether it is talking about mental resilience, it is up to about any leader. How do you keep a pulse on the resilience of the people, especially in a virtual world, and how would you encourage people to use employee assistance programs, services wherever possible?
I like the question because it's another topic that's close to my heart, and I've seen people around me break down, whether in a personal space, in a corporate space, and all that, right? We talk about well-being, right? And when we look at well-being in its fullest form, it's not just mental, right? It really applies to mental, social, physical, psychological, financial, right? And
and spiritual even, right? So it's a whole gamut of aspects that we need to look at, not just looking at mental well-being. But mental well-being has obviously played out, right? I mean, we are fortunate, we are in a place where there's a bit more space, we are in a home where, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us can kind of live together. But in some situations, and some people I know, or maybe even in some locations, maybe even country, people are not that fortunate, right?
True.
And therefore, just that sheer lockdown just creates, right? I mean, despite having a garden and all that, sometimes I'm like, I can't just take the car and drive out because I have to think, right? Okay, where am I going? What am I going to do? How many layers of mask do I wear?
Mask.
You kind of, because we've got 3, 4 generations at play here, right? I mean, I still have a grandmother who's turning 100, and you think about all these things, and therefore when I'm like, so one day, despite having all this, I'm thinking to myself, hey, why am I feeling? I was depressed, like a bit maybe frustrated. It's like, geez, I can't just walk out, and just go somewhere, right? And I can imagine people in a very confined space, alone, and away from their families for such an extended period of time. How do you deal with it? If I put myself in their situation, I don't think I can deal with it, right? So I think well-being, and I rather look at well-being, right,
Holistically.
as holistically rather than just mental, right? So for us, this year actually starting last year. I talked to my team and I said, look, we're going to carve out some budgets, right? And this budget is not going to go back to just giving free food and this and that, but let's carve out an entire well-being campaign that would cover almost the full dimensions, right, of well-being. Spiritual, I won't go into. The only thing about spirituality that I'll talk about is maybe just a bit on a bit of meditation and maybe some yoga and so on and so on. But apart from that, we won't go into it. So the mental piece, now we've got a psychologist who now runs sessions for us, right? She's just completed, I think 3 or 4 sessions with us, just talking about mental resilience and that mental state, right? And importantly, let's say if I'm not well, can my colleagues sense it even virtually? So in a setting like that, doing a team meeting, right? If someone is not turning on video, and normally he turns on, he's not turning on video, for example, or not doing anything, or not joining even your meeting, are you able to tell, right? So I think I won't even call it a bit of a first aider, but how then do you detect that? So I think just equipping our people, right, our managers and our employees to detect some of the telltale signs of maybe a depression case, maybe mental instability, and so on and so forth, right? Then we go into, so we do the physical part as well. So we've got dedicated now. I think yesterday was yoga, and then another day I think my colleague also planned out, running, and we're going out exercising and all that sort of encouragement. And that goes to a good cause, right? So you're going to put in your stats, put it in. That goes to donate an organ initiative that we're doing. So it's kind of tied, so physical. So there are a few things happening there about physical. And then we've got the financial piece as well, and we tied up, with 100 plus, come in and do financial awareness, right? Because somewhat in your life may have been impacted, may not be, an employee with our organization, may not be me directly, but if there's someone, how then do you maybe I won't say help the person, more awareness in terms of financials, right? Because a lot of our, a large part, 50-60% of our population are also millennials, right? And do they know how to save? Do they know how to save for a rainy day? Do they know how to save for their retirement, right? And so on and so forth. And then one more is the social and connectedness aspect would be, now we've got terrarium classes, we've got pixelated arts classes, we've got, I don't know, my team has done, it's a year-long program, and I can't join them all because there's so many activities. but we wanted to appeal to all aspects and cater to all walks of our population as well. Because I may have depression, but you may want to do a terrarium class, or you may want to learn how to plant something, or a sewing class or something like that. Right? So we are trying to appeal to the 1,000 employees in our office.
Very interesting. Very
So
interesting.
Okay.
Very interesting. I mean, anyone who meets an employee from Experience, be very sure that their mental resilience level should be quite high from an overall well-being perspective.
Yeah.
No, I think so. I mean, in a good way, it's good.
Yeah, no, I hope so. Because I think it's that awareness, and also, in an Asian society, you may not, you may view, well-being, or I've got depression as a taboo, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a taboo. People should be encouraged to talk about it, and get help. Get help, and then we even tell people where to go. So if we have a depression case, we say, hey, you want to talk to me? You want to talk to my colleagues? That's fine. Or talk to HR? That's fine. There's a whole host. We've got the EAPs, and we've got the defenders, and we've got women organisation, and a whole list. Give them a whole long list as well. But my team is fairly equipped. My HR business partners are great. They sense, right? They talk to the business so much. They sense, and now our business could say, "Hey HR, I need to talk to you," or Chai Ping, I need to talk to you. So we did encounter a few cases, and thankfully, actually, thankfully, we managed that. Yeah, because it's getting people specialists, right, and getting people to get treatment.
True, and I think what has happened is the fact that people, cricketers, or recently in the Olympics, there are media personalities, there are sports person who are openly talking about depression or talking about their mental health, has really kind of what is the right word for it, has kind of encouraged other people to say it's not taboo anymore. You can talk about it.
Yeah.
It is happening with a lot of people. It's just that we don't realize it, and we just don't internalize it, and we just say, oh, it's just a matter of fact, and we kind of move on. But the very fact that the sport person and kind of personalities are talking about it, I think it really plays an important role.
Yeah. Word of caution there would be, because if I think about depression and your mental state and all that, right? We have learned now from our psychologists to kind of give all this awareness and training for us. Sometimes because depression, and this is research, right? It is a scientific research. It's proven now that depression or your mental state sometimes is a learned behavior. Right? It's a learned behavior. Let me repeat that, right? So depression is a learned behavior. So I would, be very mindful if someone tells me, I'm depressed, then you go for treatment and then you come back and you're depressed and all that. Of course, it's got physiological implications as well.
True.
Of course, get it. So I would caution, our listeners out there and ourselves here as well. Because I don't want people to get into a state and say it's okay not to be okay, and then you use it as a crutch.
True.
We shouldn't use our mental state as a crutch. If it's a real genuine situation of our mental state and we need help, let's seek help.
Ask for it.
Don't
Yes,
use it as a crutch. Because then it becomes dangerous for anyone's safety, right? Yeah. Because I really I pray for everyone to be well inside out, right? So I don't want our mental state to be a crutch. That makes sense.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it is for the audience out there, but there's some very good insights, and I think some of the initiatives what you and your team in Experian are doing are very good. I'm going to flip over to a question which will kind of roll back to what we were discussing earlier, purely because it was asked by, again, someone I know well, Adish. And I can go on with my questions, but I think it's a good opportunity for the audience to ask that question and you to answer them. Most of the professionals are hired based on the skill matching, but few leaders hire looking at the present skills which can be groomed. Is it something which is practiced most with leaders across, just to understand the viewpoint, you both being leaders? I think I would take your viewpoint on this. What I would like to add to it is, most of the time, and again from a very talent acquisition hiring perspective, many a times we hire for the past based on the profile, based on the CV, what the person has done. Very few times we actually evaluate the person and look at the potential to say where would this person go future given the environment we would provide to this person. So I think you can probably club your answer both together and share it with us.
Thanks, Adish, for the question. I love the question because I'm a big proponent, right, of hiring for the future and hiring talent for potential, right? If you have basic current skills for this role, I would love to look at what your potential is, right? Whether it's next year, whether it's 3 years, whether it's 5 years, right? And as leaders, right, we really need to look at potential, right? And potential is not easily defined because a lot of leaders want to play safe, right? And why do we want to play safe? Because we are afraid of failing, right? And why are we afraid of failing? Because it's an ego thing, it's a face thing, it's whatever. But really we have to shed all that and really start hiring for potential. One of my my earlier bosses and probably one of my best bosses, I've had fantastic bosses, and one of them actually told me this. He says you must always hire people who are better than you. It is for your own team. Always hire people who are better than you, because in the past, leaders are very worried about your team members or your employee or your staff being better than you. But I really think that if your team can be better than you, then everyone would have progressed together, right? And if you can hire for diversity, and I'm not talking about gender diversity, I'm talking about diversity of experiences. If I can get a facilities person who's a musician, I'll be very happy. If I can get a HR person who is a historian or or an archaeologist, I'll be very, very happy. I've been looking, right? But my current team is great, and my teams, the teams that I've left have been great, because we create an ecosystem where we don't know a lot of things, right? But if we don't know what we don't know, we try to find answers and we co-create together. And that's important, right? So you create that kind of psychological safety. And I am conscious about it because I also, as the leader, I've been thinking, but I always tell my teammates, I don't know. I don't know. I'm learning from you as well, right? And then we co-create, And often, the journey of co-creation often leads you to a destination that is more beautiful than you ever imagined. And the leaders out there listening in, I really would challenge us to keep telling ourselves that, because a lot of times, right, our ego is so high, right? We put up this facade, and then you lose that opportunity to co-create, because the ability to co-create and hyper-collaborate, right, and do things together, despite your position as leaders, will lead you to a destination that is more beautiful than you ever imagined. So I am a big believer. I've got, if I look at my teams now and my teams before, if I look at their progress, right, over the years, right, I am very, 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 very proud, right, and I think as a leader, these are the deep gratification that you get, from leading teams and seeing them grow, and they say, I never thought I could do that. I never thought I could do that. I said, no, you can. Therefore, as leaders as well, I think it's very important to provide the air cover, the runway, and the sponsorship, right? For them, for our teams to grow, right? Because in that process, you grow.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure you would have answered. Adish, do share and comment if Chai Ping has answered to your question. You have me on the phone, Adish, so I can probably answer to you separately if you need more on this one. But I think you're getting it from the stalwart. That is more than enough. Just continuing in the same breath. But while we are conscious of time, we are almost about on the hour, Chai Ping. But there are some 3-4 more questions. If you're okay, can we continue for 10 more minutes?
Sure, of course.
Okay, because it only gets interesting, and we had the technical glitch in the start. So we have Dennis who's asking, how else would any interviewer will use the STAR method to identify interviewees or grab some loophole during the interviews?
Yeah.
Okay, up to you.
Yeah. So for those of us who are quite familiar with the STAR method, right? And remember, when you're using STAR or behavioral method, or you're using any, personality profiling test or psychological profiling test, that comes out there today, please don't ever forget that these are just tools for you to collate information into your life. If you're gonna spend, I don't know, is it 2 or 3 interviews now with that individual, you really are only spending 2 or 3 years, right, of that person's life and experience and not, right, with that individual. But then, what then, is your deciding factor, right? To me, I think, if everything else being equal, right, let's say STAR, the STAR methodology, tick, 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 the personality profile I'm looking for, tick, 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 right? Then, chemistry, me, if I'm going to be your line manager, tick, tick, tick. What then do I be looking for? I'll be looking for attitude. I'll be looking for values. I'll be looking for your teaming capabilities, right? Because I want to see how well you team, with the current team members, how well you collaborate. Because if you're a lone ranger, then and these are things I will probably probe for and get you to give me examples of where you've demonstrated some of these attributes, right? So I think values and obviously your own aspirations, right? Because when I hire anyone, it's to set you up for success. I don't want you. I'm not going to spend all this effort and bring you in and say, hey, actually 3 months down the road, you're not going to pass your probation period, right? So I think that the matching with the role, the current role, and what you envisage this role to be next year and the year after, right? Can I groom you into those roles? Would be something that I'm looking for beyond your STAR, behavioral interview, and all that, technical interview, and so on and so forth, and psychological tests and personality tests. So Dennis, I hope that answers your question.
I think the only thing, Dennis, I will add, just in addition to Chai Ping, again, I have evaluated a lot of people based on their psychometric tests and the STAR method. I think we don't do it to eliminate people. I think we more see who's the best fit to the environment we are operating in. Isn't that, Chai Ping? We know where the environment we are in, what is the culture, and we do not eliminate it. We just say, okay, this is probably the best fit we would want to have within the team, isn't it?
That's correct. Because the tests, the battery of tests, the interviews are for us not to evaluate you. Very importantly, the only thing when I say evaluate you is not to say that you're not good enough, right? But it's that suitability to the role that you have in hand, right? And I always, at the start of any interview, I always do tell my interviewees this, right? I said that, look, as much as we are here to assess your suitability, right, to the role that you have and the job at hand, it's very important also for you to assess whether you like working with someone, whether the culture that you portray, right? So it's like I said in the beginning, that any relationship should be a two-way process. Always, any relationship is never a one-sided process. And if you think that by hiring this person, and this person will be successful in the role, and at the same time contribute back to the organization, then maybe this is the right person. So I think the battery of tests and all these interviews and all that is just an opportunity, right, for us to get a glimpse of this individual. And I'm sure we need that, right? If you unpeel or you peel the onion, right, the layers and the layers will keep surfacing.
Very nice. Thanks, Chai Ping. I'm going to ask last 3 questions, and like I said, we've got to be conscious of your time, our time, everybody's time. Which is, this goes a little interesting. Which is your favorite sport? Which is your most favorite sport? Sorry.
Interestingly, when I was younger, when I was 12, maybe 13, 14, I used to do a bit of short put. I call it short put, but I think some people call it short put, right? As in me myself doing it or watching it.
No, playing or watching, either playing or watching.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I used to do that a bit, and then I thought, hey, I think this is the gender bias coming. I'm a lady, right? When you watch Olympics, and then all these ladies who do short put, right, all come out big, right? And I'm like, wow, I quite enjoyed it because it was like just if you have a bad day and you throw that ball, just kind of, I think it's quite interesting. But personally, I mean the Olympics just finished. I love watching the Olympics. I think one of my favorite would be track and field events. I love rhythmic gymnastics, the water ballet, and and all that. I really enjoy it. I like badminton as well, again because I'm Malaysian, and I'm waiting for some medal, for our Malaysia contingent. We did okay. But if I look at the gymnasts, right? I mean, just the what do you call it? They go with especially the ones with the ribbons. What do you call them now? I can't remember. The ribbons and the hoop and the clubs and all that. I'm thinking, how do you juggle the ball and juggle the hoop and juggle and do all that? Like it really requires so much physical and mental resilience. Right? I enjoyed it. I was watching, I think, the events till, I don't know, 3 a.m. in the morning or something like that. Yeah. So those would be what I enjoy watching. Yeah.
I think I enjoyed watching badminton. Obviously, PV Sindhu winning the medal. And what interestingly happened was, because badminton was on at home, we also ended up watching Malaysia winning the bronze against the Indonesian team, the doubles. And it was an amazing game. And I would have never thought when Malaysia won the bronze, I would do yay like that. I was like, oh, this is really happening to me because I stay here. I feel I'm part of the culture and so on and so forth. But that's not the question. The question is, whichever sport you pick and choose amongst this, what are the learnings from that particular sport that you kind of embed into your day-to-day leadership style? Any sport.
Yeah, so if I go back to rhythmic gymnastics and all that, just juggling, right? That juggling and doing your fantastic moves, right? I mean, I'm talking about the gymnast, not myself, but just being able to move and juggle and do all these, the back bends and the cartwheels and sometimes I think, wow, that must have taken so much practice, so much discipline, right? And these are young, right? 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, and I think there was one 17-year-old. I'm like going, wow, how do you do it? Diving was the other one, right? I mean, the gold medalist, she's 14 from China, and I'm like going, wow, don't you have a childhood? So when I think about that rigor, discipline, that determination, right? And maybe even the purpose and the national pride, right? I think these are learnings for me, right? Because I think, like, for me, in whatever role that I do, I'm a proud Malaysian. I mean, there are many interesting things that happen in Malaysia, but I still remain a very proud Malaysian, right? If I can make Malaysia better, if I can make someone like yourself, Vikram, who've been in the country for so many years and contributing to my beloved country, if I can hire more of people like you to come into my country and contribute to this country, I think then the purpose is very strong. Or if I can bring more Malaysians home, right? If I can hire more Malaysians, right? And if I can help contribute to becoming a high income nation by, it was 2020 before. I'm not sure where the goalposts have shifted. I think it's 2030 now. I hope,
30.
but if we can 2030, if I can contribute in that way, right? Just the purpose of, if I think about the gymnasts and the Olympians and all that, right? If they can, just make their country proud, right? Doing what they do and their discipline. I hope that in my small way, right? I may not be able to bring so much glory like the Olympians to their own countries, but in my small way, if I can do that, and I try to do better than what I did yesterday. I try to enable my team, my employees, my stakeholders, and get my global stakeholders to invest more in this country. I think then maybe I have done something right. Maybe. And I hope
Fantastic.
I have done something
Fantastic. I'm not very sure whether you've indirectly answered to the last question. But I'll still end up asking you that last question. And if you have, then I have one more follow-up question before we wrap up. So, you have had rich experience. Obviously, you're a standout leader, numerous followers across, whether it is locally, regionally, globally. I'm sure, especially during this lockdown period, the thought would have come to your mind to say, what kind of leadership legacy would you like to leave behind? You're far away from leaving behind. Let me remind you of that. You're still fairly far away. But if you were to leave behind, and you kind of look at it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, what kind of a leadership legacy would you like to leave behind, Chai Ping?
Thanks, Vikram. You maybe came into my thoughts occasionally, right? You go, oh, I think Chai Ping could be thinking this, and maybe you read my thoughts as well. I did say to a few close friends this, right, and I don't mind sharing this, which will lead me to hopefully answering your question, right? If I leave this world tomorrow, you never know. Life is fragile, right?
Yeah.
And death is certainty, just like taxes, So if I leave this world tomorrow, assuming today is my last day, I don't have any regrets. I can quite safely say, Vikram, I've lived with no regrets, right? I have really tried my best. And if I really were to make a regret because, of my untimely departure, then it would be probably a companion to my husband because we talk quite a bit, right? And I said, okay, please go find another companion who will talk to you and your eccentricity. The other one would be my children. Obviously, they're 18 and 11 plus coming to be 12. And last but not least would be my mom, who's 81, and she now she's fully assisted, right? She's a stroke victim. So I think these would be my couple of regrets, right? Regrets not that I haven't done what I doing my best for them. I think regrets because I won't see my mom go, and I won't see my children go, and my husband can talk to himself or talk to the mirror, whatever it is, right? So I think legacy wise, if I think about it, so because I kind of say I want to live with no regrets every single day, and I've hopefully given my best in my whatever capacity that I can, then the legacy that I want to leave would be, I hope I've enabled people who have crossed paths with me. I hope that I have given that glimmer of light, that glimmer of hope, even if it's a very, very small way, whoever that has crossed paths with me, and for those who have had more interactions with me, I hope that I would have left a legacy of them having a better life, enabled them to better standard of living, quality of life, not just in the financial way, but really whether it's how they want to nurture their family or their relationships with their husbands and wives and parents, loved ones and all that, and for just employees, right? I hope that they see a different perspective, right? Rather than, hey, I work for money and I work to buy a bigger house and another car and so on and so forth. I think so. Hopefully, I've been a small enabler to give someone that small glimmer of hope or light whoever who has crossed paths. Yeah, that would hopefully be my legacy.
Beautiful thoughts from someone who has a heart of gold, I must say. And you've played, I mean, you're just being modest, I know that, but I think you've played a very important role of that small glimmer of hope, or providing that inspiration to a lot of people, not only me, but I think to the audience who are live right now, or the audience who will view this recording. It is definitely something which is inspired. There are so many learnings we have had. I have personally definitely learned a lot, Chai Ping, even though in a virtual world, even though we are in KL, even though we are in Malaysia and the lockdown continues. So I have learned a lot. I think just continue on the path, on the journey you are in. It's been beautiful, amazing, nice interacting with you, chatting with you. I know we've gone way past the 1 hour, but it just goes on to show the essence of the discussion, and it's just been so nice to hear from you. Any parting thoughts from you to the audience, to anyone who would like to hear anything final from your side before we end the broadcast?
No, I mean, I don't want to sound spiritual or anything, but really, our time on earth is a fairly short one. I mean, in eons and all that, right? People tell me that, if they're talking about I'm not going to sound, I hope I won't sound spiritual, but I'm just trying to say that, sometimes I watch all these, gods and angels and deities, and it's interesting, right? From the Indian ones to the different genres. They're like, wow, they're interesting, to the Chinese ones, and I'm like, so they say, hey, 100,000 years, right? And you're like, wow, 100,000 years, or their 1 second is our one lifetime, right? So I think that just in that very galactic kind of concept, right? Our lifetime on Earth, whether it's 70 years or 80 years or some longer, some shorter, is probably quite a short time on Earth. And maybe I'm getting older, Vikram, and these realizations, I'm thinking, I don't know how much more time I have on Earth, but I hope, right, that all of us do something, right, to make the world a better place, whether it's global warming or climate change or something, and especially I like to think that I'm very pleasant. I'm very, very pleasant. I've been blessed by beautiful human beings, just like yourself. Right? I've been constantly blessed by human beings, and sometimes I think I don't deserve these things, but but I am blessed. I'm very, very blessed, and therefore I just think that given my blessings and given that privilege and quote unquote that I'm in, I really hope that we can do more, right? We can pay it forward. I don't want to use it loosely, but pay it forward, and if you can buy an extra meal for the security guard, or go to a eatery who is kind of not doing well, and buy 5 more packs, right? Because we can afford it. I haven't lost my job, thankfully, and touch wood. If I can spend another 50 ringgit or 100 ringgit or 10 ringgit or 5 ringgit, right? Why not, right? If you can, just that glimmer of hope can really change someone's life. Just when someone is so down, because you don't know, right? A walking person, you just don't know that maybe he's suicidal. You don't know, and you don't know what's going through because he's a stranger. But just that smile, maybe would give him or her that glimmer of hope, and that glimmer of light. And I hope my parting words then, more of us, more of us will do more, just even if that one small thing, to make this world a better place, and bring more people with us. So with that, thank you so much, Vikram, for the opportunity. Really, I'm very, very humbled. So thank you again, and thank you all for your questions or even comments, and just thank you for being here with Vikram and myself. Thank you so very much.
I'm just going to leave it on the note that make it a better place for everyone. I don't want to add anything more. It's difficult times we are living in, and hopefully in future we are having more such conversations face to face. So Thank you, Chai Ping. I really appreciate you joining us on the Curious Mind series. Really appreciate for your time, and thank you for sharing everything possible. I really appreciate. Thank you everyone who has joined us today, and take care. And bye bye from both Chai Ping and myself for now.
Stay
Bye.
safe. Thank you so very much, Vikram. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Bye.